Welcome to the very first Inside Kids' Minds podcast, the AI-generated show where we keep an eye on trusted resources, break down all the latest information, and give it to you straight in a simple, easy-to-listen format. Today, we're taking a closer look at the emotional journey. You know, that roller coaster ride kids experience from infancy all the way through adolescence.
Right. Think of it as a quick guide, really. Yeah. We're looking at key emotional developments using great sources: CDC, APA, WHO, UNICEF, Elsevier, others from North America and Europe.
Exactly. And the goal is to pull out what's most useful for, well, everyone involved with young people. Parents, educators, caregivers, psychologists, even policymakers.
And we know you're busy, so we're aiming for, clear, concise insights in just a few minutes. Practical stuff, trends if the research shows them, and just clear takeaways on how kids' emotional worlds grow.
Okay, sounds good. Let's dive right in then. Infancy, those very first months. What are we seeing emotionally?
Well, even in that first year, it's amazing how much is happening. Around 6 months, say, babies usually start showing really clear preferences.
Like smiling for familiar people.
Exactly. Big smiles from mom, dad, regular caregivers. But they also get a bit wary.
Wary of strangers.
Yeah, people they don't know. Which makes sense, evolutionarily speaking. It's protective.
Okay.
And they also start really enjoying playing little games, peekaboo, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And responding to their own name.
That makes sense. Building those first bonds, figuring out who's safe. And you mentioned attachment earlier when we were prepping. That's huge in the first year, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Secure attachment, that bond with the main caregivers. It's like the foundation. When a baby feels safe, knows their needs will be met consistently. Comfort, food, safety.
Yeah.
Research clearly links that to better social skills later on. And, interestingly, better communication skills, too.
Wow.
And there's even studies connecting how responsive a mother is, to the coos, the cries, with how early the child understands language.
So those early back and forths are actually teaching language comprehension.
It seems like it. Laying the groundwork for understanding and expression.
Incredible. So as that first year moves towards, say, 9 months, what changes then?
Around 9 months, you often see the first real signs of separation anxiety.
Ah, the clinginess.
Exactly. Suddenly, the baby who was fine being passed around might really protest if their main person leaves the room.
Okay.
And this is often when comfort objects become really important. Special blanket, a teddy.
Little security button.
Precisely. Something secure when the caregiver isn't right there. And at the same time, their understanding is growing. They start to get simple things like no.
Right.
And they begin copying sounds you make, little gestures. It's all starting.
So awareness of being separate, understanding boundaries, beginning to imitate. Okay. Let's move into toddlerhood then. 1 to 3 years. This is often quite the stage emotionally.
You can say that again. Yeah, around 18 months, toddlers are really pushing for independence, exploring everywhere. But importantly, still needing that caregiver nearby as a safe base.
And the tantrums?
Oh, yes. Temper tantrums can definitely ramp up. They have these huge feelings, but not always the words.
All right, overwhelming for them.
Totally. They often need help managing that intensity. But we also see lovely things emerging. Simple pretend play starts like a block becomes a car. And something really key called joint attention.
Joint attention.
Yeah, like when a toddler points at a dog across the street that looks back at you, making sure you see it too.
Ah, sharing the focus.
Exactly. It's a fundamental step in social communication. And you'll definitely notice them copying.
The little copycats.
Yep. Especially adults and older kids. It's how they learn so much.
So approaching 2 years old and then into the preschool years, 3 to 5, what's happening with emotional expression?
It's really developing. Their ability to show feelings in different ways, it's expanding, still needs lots of adult support to learn constructive ways, of course.
Yeah.
It's not always smooth.
Of course.
But that growing language understanding we talked about, it helps them start putting labels on feelings, their own, and maybe starting to grasp what others might be feeling too.
And then preschool proper, 3 to 5, what are the emotional hallmarks there?
Well, around 4, you often see more cooperation in play. They might actually prefer playing with friends now.
Okay, becoming more social.
Definitely. But it's also an age with huge imaginations. Sometimes they really struggle to separate fantasy from reality.
The monster under the bed feels very real.
Very real indeed.
Yeah.
They're also usually really curious, love trying new things, and socially, this is critical for developing their self-concept, who they think they are, and self-efficacy.
Self-efficacy, like believing they can do things.
Exactly, that I can do it.
Yeah.
It fuels their learning and exploring.
Makes sense. More interaction, more trying things out.
Right.
Yeah.
And their ability to express their emotions and understand others' feelings, it's taking off. That builds relationships. And those positive peer interactions, sharing, communicating, playing together, they really predict school success later. And self-regulation, too. On a different note, things like nightmares, night terrors can pop up. Bedwetting is still pretty common, too.
Okay. So, a really busy time for social and emotional learning. Let's shift gears to middle childhood, roughly 6 to 11 years old. What defines this period emotionally?
Middle childhood is often described as a bit of a quieter phase emotionally, sort of a lull between the intensity of early childhood and the big shifts of adolescence.
Quieter, but still developing?
Oh, absolutely. They're like sponges absorbing experiences, very open to positive stuff, but also vulnerable to negative things.
Yeah.
They feel emotions strongly, definitely, but coping is still something they're learning.
So they might seem more independent, but they still need a lot of emotional guidance.
Exactly right. Family is still incredibly important. That stability, that base. Routine helps a lot too, especially the school routine. Very reassuring.
And people outside the family become more important?
Yes, teachers, peers, they really start to influence self-confidence. Kids this age still need help with decisions, with boundaries. They need grown-ups to listen to their fears. Socially, friendships often become quite same-sex focused, based on shared activities, being thoughtful, but also, rivalry can be part of it.
Right. And physically and cognitively, they're growing too. How does that link in?
Well, better coordination means they can join sports teams, maybe learn an instrument.
Yeah.
Board games help with speech, counting. They often love facts, maybe get really into TV shows or YouTube, collecting things, crazes. That's very typical too.
The collecting phase.
Yep. And emotionally, this is when more complex feelings might surface more clearly. Embarrassment, maybe shame, curiosity, including, developing awareness around bodies and sexuality.
Right. Okay, that leads us into the final stage we're covering. Adolescence. 12 to 18 plus, a period of huge change. Let's start with early adolescence, say 12 to 14.
Yeah, early adolescence is heavily marked by puberty, the physical changes. And sources point out these changes bring a whole spectrum of feelings.
Like
denial, dread, apprehension, maybe relief, pride, disgust, excitement, worry, self-consciousness. It's a lot.
Wow, quite a mix.
It really is. They might need more reminders about hygiene as their bodies change. And sleep patterns often shift. Wanting to go to bed later, wake up later.
The classic teenager sleep schedule.
Pretty much. And some, especially girls, might start focusing more on diet, body image.
And it's not just physical changes, right? Their thinking is changing too.
Definitely. They're forming their own opinions more, thinking more logically, more abstractly. And that transition, often to a bigger secondary school, that's a big stressor. It can really impact them socially, emotionally, academically.
Okay. So moving into middle adolescence, maybe 15 to 17, what are the key dynamics?
Peer influence.
Yeah.
It just becomes huge.
Really takes center stage.
Absolutely. Belonging to a group, what friends think it's critical for their self-esteem, their identity, they really want their opinions heard and respected. And they get very interested in popular culture, music, fashion, what's trending online.
But that peer focus can have downsides too.
It can. Unfortunately, this intense focus on peers can sometimes contribute to risky behaviors. Trying things to fit in, maybe not fully thinking through consequences, even though they seem physically mature.
That's a really important point. Some sources mention serious risks here.
Tragically, yes. Things like car accidents are a leading cause of accidental death for teens, linked perhaps to that impulsivity, still developing judgment. And mental health is a major concern. Self-harm, suicide rates, these are significant issues in these years. Awareness and access to help are vital.
Such critical issues. And then late adolescence, 17, 18 onwards, heading towards adulthood.
Yeah, late adolescence often brings a mix of feelings about what's next. Excitement, sure, but also anxiety about adult life, responsibilities, careers, leaving home maybe.
Makes sense.
Physically, girls are often nearing full maturation. Boys might still be developing. And those later sleep patterns, they tend to stick around.
Still fighting the early mornings.
Often, yes. And concerningly, the WHO points out that many adult mental health problems actually start in adolescence.
Wow, half of them.
Around that, yes. And suicide remains a leading cause of death for young people in Europe. Plus, recent events like the pandemic have really impacted adolescent well-being globally. Access to health services can be a barrier too.
That's sobering, a really crucial reminder about ongoing support. So, stepping back and looking across this whole journey, infancy to adolescence, what are the big takeaways?
I think one key thing is that emotional development isn't linear. It's this dynamic interplay. Individual temperament, social interactions, and increasingly, the digital world it all feeds in.
Right, it's complex.
Very. Parents are critical first partners, shaping attachment, teaching social norms. But positive peer relationships are also essential for social skills, emotional competence, even school success.
And you mentioned schools teaching this stuff.
Yes, there's a growing focus, especially across Europe, on social and emotional learning (SEL) in schools. Many countries are actively implementing and studying SEL programs.
But it's becoming a priority.
It seems so. Also, those transition periods, like starting secondary school, they're sensitive times. Good moments for support.
Good.
And as we've really stressed, mental health throughout adolescence needs attention, resources, open talk. Plus, helping kids navigate the online world safely. That's a huge part of emotional support now.
Definitely. This has been incredibly insightful in mapping out those milestones. It really underlines the immense growth happening. As we wrap up, what's a final thought for our listeners to consider?
Right. Maybe this. Thinking about how we all, parents, educators, policymakers, everyone can better support young people's emotional well-being. Especially navigating today's world, informed by what we know from research by the CDC, WHO, and others. How do we work together effectively?
A really important question. Food for thought. Well, thanks so much for tuning in today. It's been fantastic having you along as we explored these emotional stages.
Exactly.
Stick around. We've got plenty more amazing episodes coming your way every single week. See you next time.
A big thanks from me, too, for tuning into our very first episode of Inside Kids' Minds. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss out. See you soon.